The humanistic approach can be likable to many people who want to be positive as to their present and future, while less appreciated by people who think that it is not realistic for not considering the past, preferring their psychoanalytic approach. However, this cannot be completely true because Rogers believed that parents who showed their children only conditional love contributed to their anxious adulthood behavior of trying to satisfy other people, and that prevented their self-actualization, and that may have contributed to their mental illness. As a result, the therapist needs to show unconditional positive regard, but still, he did not consider children's experiences as deterministic as Freud did. CBT can sympathize with that third force, as it also concentrates on the present and much less the past, as it is looking to give the client tools to cope with his disorder, for example, exposure and phobia. Unlike Freud, who believed that variables of personality, which are id, ego, superego of the mind, were inaccessible because they were unconscious and that only a psychoanalyst can reveal them while the client must trust him blindly, Rogers and Kelly believed that they were conscious, accessible to the person through introspection. His subjective point of view that involves cognition and emotions as to the self, others, and events are important for them as people interpret them in different ways, and that helps them to understand the client's problems. Following the above, Kelly's personal construct theory is a cognitive one, where a person builds constructs according to experience, but they are changeable following unexpected experiences. In a way, this resembles the cognitive behavioral therapy, where a person's behavior derives from cognition functioning. However, the difference is that in CBT, the therapist is the one to decide whether the cognition of the client was fine or distorted. And if it was distorted, there would be techniques to change this cognition, such as testing this cognition through behavior that would give evidence to the client that it was wrong following the refuting result. While in Rogers' client-centered therapy, the client is in charge of his thoughts and behavior, as during therapy, he would engage in self-analyzing, arriving at the conclusion by himself, while the therapist accepts all his variables of behavior through unconditional positive regard and empathy, and by that he would achieve growth. Moving to the Gestalt therapy that was included in the humanistic approaches, following similarity, it is a holistic one. The aim is to lead to growth and accomplishment of potentials through an active role of the client, such as thinking, experimenting, awareness, taking responsibilities, and manipulating the environment to become complete again. However, the therapist does not take a passive role like in Rogers' therapy, but rather active through dialogue and suggesting activities, but without forcing opinions on distorted thoughts that need to be changed like in CBT. Also, opposite to psychoanalysis, but similar to CBT, the therapy does not take years, and the psychotherapy does not concentrate on the past, opposite to Freud and similar to CBT, but rather on the present, as dealing with the past prevents growth. The therapist needs to be compassionate, sincere, and non-judgmental. On the other hand, existentialist therapy claims that a person can construct his world and identity by himself, and it is not connected to circumstances, as people are responsible for their fate. Like in the Gestalt, wholeness is essential to maintain mental health. Internal awareness is needed to increase self-direction and life satisfaction, and it is more important than awareness to the environment. Like CBT, existential therapy shares mindfulness variables, as the person needs to be aware of his experience in a close range, but without being affected by it negatively, as the aim is to accept anxiety. Another aspect of existential therapy is the need to draw meanings from negative experiences as a way to cope and live freely, taking responsibility to experience growth with no consideration to determinism. Like other humanistic approaches, the therapist needs to show respect, empathy, compassion, and unconditional positive regard. Behaviorism and humanism also show difference. While humanism deals with free will and choice, Behaviorism is deterministic, believing that people are designed by their environment. The therapy also tries to change unhelpful behaviors in a direct manner, unlike humanism. However, it resembles humanism in a sense that it focuses on the present and much less the past, although it can assume that these non-coping behaviors has their roots in childhood learning.